Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and whether you're watching us live or sometime in the future, although you do know that the future never comes, don't you? Or is that tomorrow? Oh, it's tomorrow that never comes. It's, I don't know. I'm just going a bit bananas here because there's no Terce here. Ah, she's got a more important thing to do with her family, which is to watch South Africa get beaten at rugby. Anyway, I've given her time off to do that, but I do have a guest, and it's Momus. Welcome, Momus. How the devil are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, good. I'm okay, thank you. Mm. Well, we've had a little bit of a chat because you showed interest in our organization some couple of weeks ago,
Yeah.
and I meet so many people, I always forget how I first met them. And so I'm sure we bumped into each other on social media or something. And I decided that you were a kindred spirit and sent you an invitation to chat. That's usually the way. What was it? How did it actually happen?
I think so. It was through Twitter, or as it called now, X. And I
Yes.
think so we communicated or exchanged some messages on comments and stuff, and then we started talking on the DMs, and then yeah, and then we
Yeah.
had a chat, a longer chat. That's how it happened. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. A video chat like this,
Yeah.
but private. Yeah. Hmm. So I'm very pleased the way you've shown interest in our organization because we're a small team that runs FreeThought Productions or freethoughtcity.productions at gmail.com if you want the full email address. And so we don't often get somebody who's, you know, keen to join us. So welcome.
Thank you.
And you bring some interesting background to this position, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, well, I can talk about my background, and then we can take it from there. What do you think?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead. Tell us
Yeah.
how you became the Momus that you are today.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll keep it as brief as possible. So,
Okay.
I was born in Kuwait in the Middle East, and I think so. I was around 4 years old when the Gulf War happened. We traveled to Pakistan since my parents are from Pakistan, and I was born a Muslim, obviously, since I was, in those parts, and my parents were from Pakistan. Then we went back to Kuwait after a year when the war ended, and I stayed there till I was 15 years old. And then after 15, I stayed in Pakistan in Karachi for around 9.5 years, and after that, I came over here in UK, in England, and I've been here for 13 years now. So that's sort of my geographical, story,
Yeah. Yeah.
as you speak. And but there's
That's your
obviously
plotted,
a lot of things that happened during that time.
that's your plotted history. But can you tell us more about the places? What was it like being in Kuwait and then being in Pakistan and back in Kuwait and again once more in
Yes.
Pakistan? Probably a changing Pakistan all the time.
Well, yes. Well, when I was in Kuwait, obviously, when I was younger, um, there wasn't much to think about the place. It doesn't really matter.
No.
Um, but it was like Kuwait in terms of most Islamic countries. It is pretty modern in the sense
Mm,
that they don't enforce things. I don't. They don't throw the religion at your face. It's sort of like at your leisure, sort of a thing. So, it suited me a lot. But as I grew older in Kuwait, I found that there were a lot of cultural problems over there, as in not cultural problems, I would say, like, but cultural differences with myself. And
mm.
since the Kuwaitis, the Arabs over there, they don't really mingle with the expats over there,
Ah,
so
mm.
you don't really immerse in their culture. So you are from that country, but they don't give you nationality or anything like that, and they don't really integrate, or they don't really care if you integrate or not. It's like,
Yeah,
you're there till you're there, and then you can go back home. Basically, for them, they don't really care.
yeah.
But so my upbringing was more I would say like more a mixture of Americanized and a bit of British sort of influences on me. So
Mm.
I was still like, Kuwait itself was pretty safe. So when I went to Pakistan when I was 15 years old, I think so that's when I got a bit of a cultural shock. And that's probably where my journey away from the religion happened as well. Because you have this, obviously people who are born in culture would born in Pakistan would experience that culture a bit differently than someone
Yes.
who's an outsider who's coming over there and who is
Yes.
not really molded into one of the conservative or traditional sort of Muslims. So I found it pretty hard fitting in into the Pakistani culture. I did make a lot of good friends who are still my friends, but those
Mm.
are the sort of people who also have an open mind and who aren't that radical Muslims, who would want to kill
Yeah.
me because I sort of stay like, strayed away from religion, as so to speak. But it wasn't, I would say it wasn't a good time. And if I had to pinpoint, because there was a lot of, there were a lot of fundamental issues that I had with Islam itself.
Yeah.
But in Pakistan, the manifestation of that religion is pretty different than it is in the Arab as well. In the more
Yes. Yes.
um, in the more affluent Arab, I would say.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
However,
There's a big difference, isn't there, between
super.
moderates and fundamentalists?
Yes. So in the
Mm.
affluent parts of the Arab, they are very moderate because obviously, once you have money, then you have things to do rather than
Yeah.
spend your time doing that sort of things. In Pakistan, it's a bit of a weird thing because they don't speak the language of the book, so to speak. Most of them don't really understand that much, and there's too many sort of there are too many different sects that are leading
Yes.
people this way or that way, just manipulating things. They're adding things that don't
Yes.
even make sense within the religion.
Yeah. So if they don't speak the language and can't read the book, they're obviously being fed whatever the imam fancies.
Yeah, I mean, you know what the sad thing is that I mean, I'll come up to my issue with Islam anyways, but let's say if I didn't have any issues with it,
Yeah.
there are translated versions of the book available, right? So
Yes.
if you wanted to understand the religion, and not
Yes.
depend on the sunnahs, like the things of the prophet, like which aren't
Yeah.
like really verified. They're just like, oh yeah, this person said, this person said, this person said, like he heard from the prophet. I mean,
Mm.
those are not verifications, but if
No.
you actually wanted to read the text and understand it like as you would with the Bible or any other book, you can just
Mm.
pick it up in your own language. But
Yes.
there's this idea within Islam that you don't get the what do you say, you don't get the the benefits or like the good graces of God if you don't read the Quran in Arabic.
Yeah.
So they
So
prioritize in, they know how to read Arabic because they
so
read the Quran, but they don't understand what they're reading.
no, no, it's parroting, really, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's making the sounds that you've been asked to copy.
exactly. Yeah.
Mm.
And obviously there are a lot of scholars and stuff in Pakistan who do read, you know, but when most of your population is illiterate anyways, they're not
Yeah.
going to engage in reading it, and plus in reading it in their language where they can understand. Plus it
Mm.
seems like it's sort of like a tick mark exercise for them anyways, that they read it in Arabic and they say, oh yeah, I've finished the Quran. But like,
Mm.
what did you read? Do you know what you read? Can you actually tell me anything? Like there's up to a point where they will memorize the whole Quran, because there's a lot of like goodwill from God that happens. You go straight to heaven, right? So they
Yeah.
have memorized from like cover to cover, but they do not understand what they have memorized. It's like, what is that? That is taking away your critical thinking, your need to understand what you're reading. It's so,
Yeah.
and it mars, like, it makes your personality that way then.
Mm. It's it's really handing over your own will to Tom, Dick, or Harry, some other guy
Yeah.
who's
Yeah.
who's supposedly your connection to God.
Yeah. But you know what, John, like it's sort of like I see that's a problem, but I also see that that's a very common thing throughout the world. So when I came over here,
Mm,
um, at that time I had like in my head, obviously I had left Islam because I had like some fundamental issues with it.
mm,
And I didn't leave it like culturally in a way, but
mm,
I
mm.
left it like, I need to discover more things sort of
Yeah,
in my own head, that
yeah,
if there's a God, I need a different journey, and if I were to come back to him or not. Obviously now I know that I won't, but at
yeah.
that time it was the beginning of it. So
But
I
yeah,
took various parts in my head, like I didn't just leave it. I went, like, I explored more into Sufism because I liked that part of it more.
mm,
But
mm.
when I came over here, I met a lot of people and they said, "Oh, I'm an atheist," right? And
You
I
mean
asked them
you mean
in England.
yes? I know you meant in England, but I'd like to know what
Mhm.
ethnicity were
Ah,
these people
okay.
that you
So
were meeting?
these were
Just-
the native English people, right? So
Ah, right.
I asked the English then, some of them, like few friends of mine, and they said,
Mm,
"Oh yeah, I don't believe in God. I don't believe in Christianity. I'm an atheist."
mm,
And when I asked them why they are an atheist, try
mm.
to, like, because I sort of was as well, they they didn't really have an answer. They were like, "Oh yeah, because I like doing what I like doing. I don't like other people telling me what to do." And I was like, "Well, your version of Christianity is pretty loose. It's not really stopping you that much from doing anything. So you need to
Yeah,
have a fundamental reason why you're leaving, a set of ideas, and
yeah.
what have you put for yourself in place of it? Because if you're leaving it hollow, then you're just going towards a materialistic world. That's not going to satisfy you. That's going to just come back to bite you. But
Well,
what?
except that they were most likely Anglican Christians, and
Yeah,
because as you know, that's our established church,
yeah,
and and it's pretty lukewarm,
yeah,
as you say.
exactly. Yeah, I felt like, well, I could be part of that church and
Mm,
still have questions about God, like, because most of the priests don't believe in God fully, right?
yes,
In the Anglican church. So I didn't
yes.
understand that. I was like, well, if you are saying that you are an atheist, like, it's not a simple thing to do. We have had thousands and thousands of years. We have had different various religions. We have
Mm,
structures around God and not. We may or may not believe they are real, but they are structures for us on how to live our life. We have
uh-huh,
survived with their help in one way or another, right?
right.
So you have to
Mm,
put something in place for it. But what I found, like their reasoning for telling me why they were atheists, was the same reason why when a Pakistani would tell me that they are a Muslim, right? They
oh,
didn't haven't
that's
thought about it.
interesting.
So they haven't thought about it that
Ah,
deeply. They just are. They just are because
right.
they made someone into a priest, like an
Yes,
atheist priest. Oh yeah, this person has said it, and he's smarter than me, so I must be that.
yes. So you're saying that these are followers
Mm,
rather than
thinkers.
thinkers.
Yeah,
That they've just taken on board what seems to be the done thing in their particular culture.
exactly. And I
Mm,
was like, well, that is what probably most people are like. And should I blame them for it? And that's when, like, I started letting go of my anger towards the fundamentals of
mm,
any other religion, because I
yeah.
thought I sort of saw that there is a pattern that people follow, because not everyone, the what mistake that most of the people do, and most of the atheists do as well, in my thinking, people who are high intellectuals, scientists, and all of those people, they think that everyone has the same capacity as them to think,
Oh.
that they have the same capacity as them to think, and the same time, in their life to think about those things. Most
Well,
people don't.
it may not be necessarily the same capacity. It might just be the same interest. I mean, a lot of people would find they would prefer to spend their time doing something
living
more
the life.
more immediately gratifying than
Yeah,
thinking about problems of life existence and
yeah.
whether it's actually number 42 or not.
But John, like the thing as well is, like, if you say the average IQ of a person within England is the average intelligence rate, right, within 99.
Mm,
So if someone who's Richard Dawkins, or some other intellectual, their
mm.
IQ is in the genius part, right? So there is a problem with capacity, but that doesn't mean that they have a problem, like that we should view their value differently, right? So IQ is
Yeah,
not the measurement of value; it's just a measurement of a particular kind of intelligence. So let's
yeah.
say if there was an apocalypse, I wouldn't depend on Richard Dawkins to save me. I would depend
I'll
on a
tell.
farmer or a hunter to save me, right? So different people
I'll
have
tell.
different needs.
I'm seeing Richard on Monday. I'll tell him you
Yeah.
said that.
Why he won't be able to run away anyways. He's gone too old now.
Say hello to Tercia, because although she's not joining us today, she's thinking about us at least. Look, she's got
I'll
her
be watching later.
priority. The box are playing Ireland, so
Yeah.
she's gonna watch us afterwards. Thanks
All
for
right.
watching,
I
Tercia.
hope
Thanks.
this for one time I will back the Irish just because she's not here.
Okay, right. So
Yeah.
I wanted you to expand a bit on your anger, because we've sort of glossed over that. You mentioned that you
Yeah.
had sort of anger towards other religions, and
I like,
perhaps,
okay, so I
perhaps
would
towards
define.
the irreligious as well. I don't know, but
Yes, I
I
actually,
don't
because
want.
I would define myself more as an agnostic than anything, right? So in
Mhm,
anything that I do, either it's all kind of thinking, I don't know, and that's where I start from most of the
mhm,
time. I actually don't know, and I can be wrong. I always have that in the back of my mind when I would talk to someone. So where I would say, like, okay, the problems that I have with the atheist, we can come up to that later, right? Because it's not that much of a problem, as in just a behavioral problem, not a fundamental sort of problem. Now, the issues with Islam that I found was, among many things that probably there's no point on going in detail anyways, but the fundamental things that I found was, I didn't find it as a continuation of an Abrahamic religions. I found it as a corruption of Abrahamic religions. I found it that it was a plagiarization, which is fine because all the other religions are plagiarized as well. But I found that they copied it but did not understand the metaphorical truths within it, right? And they depended more on the edicts and stuff. And also, I found it disturbing that, first of all, the conduct of Muhammad, of how he was anyways,
mhm,
marrying a 9-year old and stuff like that. It's just like, well, someone needs to explain this, and
mhm,
someone needs to say whether it is right or wrong. Like, you have to come out and you have to say. And
mhm.
if you say that, okay, well, it was the thing around that time, and then they cite the European kings and stuff, well, European kings never married anyone till they hit their puberty, right?
Yeah,
So there's a difference, right? There's a gradation that still wasn't right, but it was right around that time. And plus, none of the European kings declared that they were the last prophet of God, right? That they knew everything, that they came with the finality of the knowledge that nobody else needs to know after him what God says, right? So none of so they would not know better, right? So
mhm,
Muhammad, as that prophet, should know better not to conduct himself in that way. That when he's in his whatever 60s or late 50s or whatever, he's marrying a
mhm,
9-year old.
mhm.
So that was sort of like an issue, but we can say, okay, there are many theories like that, whether that was right, whether there was wrong. Some scholars says that the
Yeah.
age is like. So I was like, okay, that's fine, but let's look back into Quran. When there's one thing that always disturbed me a lot, is God saying, Allah saying, that you're okay to lie if to save your own life.
Uh-huh.
And for me, that's a problem, right? Because God is not supposed to be, God is not supposed to be practical, and God is not supposed to be logical. God is supposed to be an ideal, right?
mm,
And
mhm,
your journey in that context, whether God is real or not, it doesn't even matter. Your journey is to work towards that ideal. And in
mm,
that process, you will become a better human being. That's sort of the gist of religion as far as I see it.
mhm.
But if a
Yeah,
God is permitting you not to reach your ideal, like sometimes you can let go of ideals, for me
yeah,
that's a problem, because God can remain the ideal. God can say no, no matter what, in what circumstances, you're always supposed to tell the truth. But then
yeah,
you can make a judgment and you can
yes,
sin, and then you can ask for forgiveness. That's
yes,
fine. But when
yes,
your
yes.
ideals are flexible, then there's a problem for
Yes.
me.
What you don't want is the authority telling you it's okay, you don't have to do
Mm.
what I say. Yes,
Because then that leads you to make more decisions, more
mm,
manipulations, where you can
mm,
lie, and that have been done, that have been
mm,
used within the sunnah, and like, so on and so on.
mm, mm.
Also, I didn't. One of the red flags for me was, when God is saying like, this is my sort of whatever I'm saying, and other things, the prophet will tell you, right? So it's like, well, if you had everything to say, you should have said it.
Yes,
Because
yes,
if he's giving way for the prophet to make
yes,
edicts for you, then
yes,
you're admitting that a man can understand your plan,
mm,
right? So you've already contradicted yourself.
yes, yes. If you're a god, behave like one. Don't get some agent who
Don't be
will.
practical. So
Yeah,
now a lot of Muslims pride themselves, oh yeah, our religion is so practical, it has systems. So it's like, no, ideals are never meant to be practical,
mm,
because they're never meant to be reached like to the fullest. It's a process. You try to be the best you can be. And
mm,
how Aristotle talks about virtues, right? So the virtues, he says, if you want to be kind, if you want to be have a kindness as your virtue, then every day you need to practice, and you need to be kind. If you
yes,
want to be generous, then every day you need to go give a beggar or whoever some money, because it's
yes,
a process. You don't just become virtuous by believing in something. You have to become virtuous by doing it, right?
yes, yes. Mm,
So I was having like these sort of issues with it. i
mm-hmm,
came I sort of, in my head, it took me a while, but I came to this idea that probably, you know there's a we have to separate the religion and God, which most people don't do, right?
mm, yeah, mm-hmm,
So I had, at that time when I left, because obviously there's so much restrictions within Islam, but you leave, we're going to kill you, which
yes,
shows me
yeah,
they're so insecure. You have to be so insecure in your faith to do
mm,
that. And
yes,
the main thing is that it kind of shocks me, because there's a surah, there's a verse in Quran which says the truth is from your Lord, so let him who please believe, and let him who please disbelieve. So God is himself saying that, you can believe in it if you want to believe in it, but it's not sort of like compulsory.
yeah, yeah,
But the expert, the scholars and the prophet and stuff, they have expanded it to become, you know
uh-huh.
more agitated. So
So
obviously, yeah, go on,
can I,
sorry.
can I just have a little input here? Because from a Western point of view, we hear things like Islam is a religion of peace, and
No,
then other people tell us it's a religion of submission.
no, Islam, the word itself means submission, right? So it does
Mhm.
not mean peace. And it basically is that you will get peace through submitting to God, right?
Ah,
That's a longer meaning of it. But Islam itself means to submit. It does not mean peace. It is not a religion of peace. You cannot profess to have a religion of peace and then threat people with death if they leave it, right? that's
no,
that's a abusive relationship. That's not peaceful.
yes, indeed.
So yeah, and you know at that time, obviously, when you leave it, and I can understand the issues that most ex-Muslims have, right?
Yeah.
And I don't agree with most of their tactics. At that time, obviously, when I was leaving, it was a long time ago. I fell into that trap as well, because you're resentful, right? So, but you have to let go of your resentment, if you because it
Mm,
will eat you up. And that is the thing that I saw within the new political left as well, that there's so much resentment over there that is
mm.
eating people up, and it's making people nonsensical.
Yes,
It's
yes.
not logical anymore.
When you're motivated by anger or a grievance of some sort,
Yeah.
then you can't think rationally, and
No.
so your behavior is biased,
Yeah,
which
and
is what
just
it is.
become anti, right? You just become anti, and that's what I've
Yes,
seen. Like most of the ex-Muslim channels and stuff, I don't blame them, because their lives have been threatened. You know,
yes, yes,
My life was threatened, like, but it wasn't as much. I didn't experience that much as if
mm,
like someone like Yasmin Muhammad has,
yes,
experienced in our life, right? So you are bound to feel that, right? But he most of them have found a way out of it. Some of them are in their process of getting out of it, and
mm,
some of them, it is still necessary to keep that resentment in a way and use it productively, because we still have problems in Iran and other places.
yeah,
While Saudi Arabia might be trying to move away from
yeah,
fundamentalism, there are still countries who are not, you know and Saudi Arabia still has a lot of problems. But
yes,
I
yes,
do like the move of their crown prince. I don't like the crown prince, but I do like his move, because he's doing something that is essential for reformation within the religion. And
yes,
that importance is to separate the religion from the sunnah. That is the one main thing, right? And in doing so, you separate the religion from the sharia law, because the
yes,
sharia law is not just Quran. So sharia law is what the scholars have concluded, taking it
yes,
from sunnah and stuff like that, and they have specifically chosen the sunnahs that
yes,
benefit them for their
yes.
laws and stuff.
Cherry picked is the word, isn't it? Yes.
Exactly, exactly. If it
So
has to be a religion, it has to be separate from the edicts. It has to be the religion like Christianity is now.
I'm glad you brought that up because in the global atheist news, which has just happened, and I will clip this and play it tomorrow in Views on the News, and I hope you'll join as new panel member for that show that
Yeah,
we record on a Sunday, because there's a clip of various Muslims saying how Islam isn't just a religion, it's also a state
yeah,
as well. It's all the
yeah,
constitution that goes with, governing.
yeah. Islam is basically, if you want to understand it simply, it's like communism. So Islam is the religious communism that if there ever was any, right? So it talks in those terms. It sort of wants to control you in those terms, right? And it is their way or no way. If communism had a religion, they would pick Islam,
Right. Yes,
you know,
interesting.
because it fits perfectly in that worldview. They
Yeah,
can
yeah.
control easily.
And going further from that, once you've sort of wrapped up religion with governing a state, then the next step is to wrap it up with your race as well, so
Yeah,
that
yeah.
so that you're inevitably born into it. In fact, a friend of mine, he's Turkish, and he
Hmm.
didn't know he was a Muslim until he applied for a passport and saw what they'd written there. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
and
I mean, that's the
so,
thing. I mean, it obviously Islam does. See, the thing is, Islam, the reason why they created Islamophobia is because you cannot be racist to someone on the basis of Islam, because Islam is not connected to one singular race, right?
mm,
Like anti-Semitism, you can agree, like, you can consider that, because it is connected to, it is not just a religion, it is their race as well, because they were Semites, right? So you could be anti-Semitic. So the reason why Islamophobia they created is because they said, well, people are criticizing us, so
yeah,
let's create a way of, so that we can, call someone a racist. But they might not be racist, because what if a white Muslim is being
yes,
criticized,
yes,
right? Okay, we can say, oh, you're being Islamophobic now.
Yes,
and
yes,
these terms are the terms that stop. What angers me is that the terms like Islamophobia and stuff are and the acceptance of that in the Western culture, especially by this new weird left, you know, that they disable the efforts of the moderate Muslims to reform the religion, because they
yes,
themselves would be called Islamophobic. Even the
yes.
ex-Muslims like myself, who don't have a hatred towards Islam as such, right? So I have fundamental disagreements, right? So I would have ideological issues. I don't have a problem with Muslims per se, because my family is Muslim,
Mm,
right?
mm,
So, but they are moderate Muslim, right? Each to our own
mm.
sort of a thing. We don't
Yeah.
impose ourselves on each other.
Mm,
Obviously, like, that I have the problem with ideology because it makes those people do different things, like
mm.
radical things. But also the issue is, like, if you're coming back to the issue with some of the ex-Muslims that I have, is you cannot expect billions of people who believe in Islam to just next day stop believing in it, right? So if you want peace, if you want to move somewhere where we can coexist, then you have to go for a bit of reformation exercise, right? And
Yes,
you have to give them room to discuss their religion, to understand, like,
yes,
more, and to be able to be criticized and whatnot, how Islam was being in the golden era of Islam. That's when
yes,
Islam was being talked about openly and being criticized, and things were being
yes,
criticized.
yes. And science was being done too.
Hmm.
So the
Yeah,
whole principle of science is
is doubt,
being wrong,
right? So
finding out where you're wrong, and then hoping to be a bit less wrong, and that's highly critical in
right.
principle. So at that time, Islam was quite self reflective.
Yeah, and the main thing is, if we don't have doubt in things, if we are absolutist, then
Mm,
we are not going to progress. We need to have doubt, right? And this was actually one of the issues that I have with science, during the last 3 years, because people moved away from the doubt in science to believing in science. And that sort of like showed me, it's like, well, you are acting the same way as, followers of a religion do. you know you don't care if you're making sense or not. Someone tried to argue with me. It was about the, like, why I didn't take the COVID jab or whatever. I was like, well, it's a personal choice, I didn't take it, whatever.
yeah.
And this tried to explain to me that, as an engineer, blah blah blah. I was like, what does that have to do with anything? You're an engineer, what does that have to do with vaccines? But now you're bought into this idea, oh, I have membership of the religion of science, so as a member of science, like, just, so again I saw, like, there is a tendency in people to let their thinking go, no matter what it is, no matter if it's science, whether it's any other religion. There is a tendency in people. So
Well, yeah, I see where you're coming from, and of course, we've all got to acknowledge expertise where we
yeah,
meet it. I mean, if I want, if I've got a leaky tap or something,
yeah,
I'm going to seek the help of a plumber
yeah,
because he's most likely to have the expertise to fix it.
exactly.
And and if I need an operation, I'm not going to go to the local
No,
plumber. I'm going to go to a
yeah,
good surgeon for that purpose. So I don't agree with you entirely on this aspect because I think the difference is not in um, giving up your opinions to an agent. The difference is whether the agent, the expert, has a good substantiation for his advice.
yeah. But how do you build that when you are able to question the expert, right? Or you have the understanding towards it. So if someone is trying to question the expert, and you are coming from a separate field, and you say, oh, as an engineer, I believe in like this. It's like it's not a matter of belief, it's a matter of me trying to understand something. So
Yeah.
then that expert has to prove himself. He should
Mm.
not have a, let's use the pun, he
Sure.
should not have the god-given right to say this is
No,
the science that
no,
I
no.
have. And it's like, no,
Yeah.
I should be able to disagree with you, and
Yes.
you might be right, you might not be right, but in that process we will find out. But there has
Yes.
to be, once you start making into an edict, then well, we come back to the same problem of having a religion.
Which was why back in the COVID days, I think we're talking about back then, aren't we?
Yeah, yeah,
The experts were they were coming on the screen and they were saying they weren't saying this is the fact. They
yeah,
were saying the evidence indicates.
yeah,
And they were able to point to the evidence,
yeah,
graphs came up on the screen and so on.
mm,
If you're over this age, you're more vulnerable, all that sort of stuff.
yeah,
But when the government was considering making something mandatory, like a
yeah,
mask, for
yeah,
example, then those
yeah,
very same experts didn't support it. They
yeah,
wanted it to be a matter of choice because otherwise, like you say, what you're doing is enforcing a belief rather
yeah.
than permitting people to come round to your way of thinking critically.
Exactly. And that's when you push governance on such things, when you push politics on those things, and you start saying, oh, that person is saying something, we must shut him down because of that. That is like, that is not the healthy way of doing it. Because once you start shutting people down, then that's where it creates doubt, other kind of doubt in people. And that's what we're seeing, like, no trust. And that's how people have lost trust in the religion as well, because they stopped explaining why you should follow things, and they said, no, you must do it. you know and
Mm.
I mean, when okay, if we go back to the idea, the talk about God. And I mean, like I said, I mean, I would probably define myself as sort of like more, obviously, like I said, as more agnostic than atheist, like in terms that you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah,
And we still have not, in a way, we still have not discovered the original life, a definitive explanation for it. We have the best possible explanation for it, and they
yeah,
are all more compelling than the religious explanations.
yeah.
But I also think, like, most religions have metaphorical truths within it,
Yep.
which might indicate to something that is not as factual as they claim it to be,
Sure. Yeah.
but a
Mm,
version of it that is yet
mm.
to be understood, a version of it that sort of perhaps sits deep within us in a way that we can't explain it yet, right? So,
Yeah. Well, what you're getting into there is our need for answers, I think,
mhm, mhm,
because as curious creatures,
yeah,
inquisitiveness is a strength
yes,
of, particularly of humans, but of other animals
yeah.
too.
And I
And
think that needs to be nurtured. That doesn't
yes,
need to be shut down. So if someone is going the religious route but is still trying to find meaning and purpose,
mm,
I think so. Go for it, because as
yeah,
long as you have that curiosity, as long as you're building that thread of curiosity, it
mm.
will lead you to somewhere good, or from you something good might come, whether
Yes,
you might
indeed.
be right or wrong.
The problem is for people who are really desperate to have answers.
Yeah,
When they can't get evidential answers, then they'll go for God done it.
yeah. I mean, that's the god of gaps, isn't it? So,
Yeah. Mm.
but at the same time, maybe maybe it is not necessary for them to understand. Maybe it is okay for them to say God did it, and that satisfies them, right? But as long as we nurture the fact that your idea of it is not definite idea,
Mm.
as long as we maintain that civility that used to be in England,
Yeah.
that is kind of going away now a bit, you
Yeah.
know
We
so
want to be able
as
to
long as we
challenge.
maintain that.
We want to be able to challenge these people who claim that,
Exactly, yeah.
like,
and
April
and
did it.
and they should be able to challenge us as well, right?
Yes, indeed.
That,
Yes.
you only have as much freedom as your opponent, right? So you can't ask for full freedom and then say, okay, that person cannot, like, yes,
No.
you should not ridicule them because they believe in something. Because ultimately, we don't know, next day God might show himself and say like, yeah, you see, I was always here. Unlikely
Yeah.
to happen, but like, we still have to leave that room. So, when it comes to the idea of God, I tend to think of it like, with various religions and without it. And personally, I think if there is one or multiple or a council of gods, they are not bound by a singular religion, leading to something that I always say, like, which I hope to translate in one of my future books. I want to write about my religion to non-religious sort of journey out of Islam, and that is,
That'll be
um,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah. But I want to give it more time. I want to give it more time till I've lived for a bit longer, because I might have
Uh-huh.
more things to add to it. But
Yes.
if there is a God, I think, then there is no religion. And if there is a religion, then there is no God.
That's
So,
interesting. Hmm.
most of what scientists say, like, saying scientists, most of the sensible people say that, the theory of evolution disproves God, right? I think so. The theory of evolution disproves religions. It doesn't disprove God as such, right? Because you can have a God which is not the God of the books, right?
Hmm.
Which might be a starter. It might be an entity, or it might be an energy, or whatever it might be, but it started something, and from it everything creates, right? So for me, theory of evolution discredits religions, right?
Interesting.
So, like the
Because,
god, yeah, sorry, go on.
well, I was going to say that I see where you're coming from, because if you've got a God and it's a genuinely powerful entity, it shouldn't need humans to represent it, and a hierarchy of,
No,
bishops and archbishops or whatever, and buildings to be worshipped. Why would it need to be
no.
worshipped?
Uh, we
It's
would
a
not
God.
create the we would not create the council of ants in the anthill. If we were to
No.
create something, we would just create an ant and then let them get on with it, right? So, or we would not
Yeah.
even create the ant. We would create something that might or might not create the ant, which
Mm.
could be the god, and and it could be just an energy that starts something, and we just name it, right? It's
Yeah.
an just as a name place, right? So the god of the books.
We can't eliminate the possibility that there was some mysterious entity that kickstarted things. So it's not
Exactly.
something we can't
Exactly.
disprove. What we
till
have,
we, till we find the definitive proof of the origin of life, we cannot,
mm,
and we need to, the I think so it's important to keep your mind open in that way,
yes,
because
yes,
uh, then we are not restrictive, like we are not restricted by the science that we know now. There
mm,
could be something like the god of the books is, for me, the god of the books is just few best attempts of defining, labeling, and giving meaning to,
yes.
like, a phenomena that we do not understand but have since,
But we want an explanation for it in
yeah,
order to be
and we are
we want to be
drawn
able to
towards it.
sleep at night without worrying about how this mystery came about and we haven't solved it.
Yeah, and we are drawn towards it. This phenomena, like I said, it can belong to an entity or multiple entities or no entity at all. But I
Yeah.
feel as though as soon as we stop labeling that phenomena, or sorry, as soon as we start labeling that phenomena, we start losing the essence and the purpose of
Ah,
it. Like, as soon
yes.
as we define God and make rules and regulations and stipulations on how
Mm,
to obey and understand him or her, we
mm,
put God outside of us. And in
mm.
doing so, we make it an other. Like, whatever they may or may not be, the connection of God has to come out of us. Otherwise, it is not for us. The
And the
like,
trouble with that is, in different parts of the world, we've all come up with different gods that have
yeah,
come out of us,
yeah,
and we are dogmatic that we're right, that our God is the true one, and
exactly.
that's a recipe for conflict. I
Yeah.
just want to say
Hmm.
thanks, Dean, for watching us. You're a fan. I love you for being that. We must have you on the show one day. And I want to mention that our new viewer here, Rainbow, he's brought to our attention the fact that it's in New York where the mayor
Um,
has just said the call to prayer, the wailing
yeah,
from the
yeah,
minarets, the
yeah,
amplified, very loud, intrusive wailing from the
yeah.
minarets
So you know
no
what?
longer no longer needs a permit
So
on
you know what? I'll tell you about this. Like in Kuwait and in most like these countries in Kuwait, it's actually not allowed. Not the call for prayer. Obviously, the call for prayer is allowed, but
yeah,
any other things apart from the call of prayer on the loudspeakers and stuff is actually not allowed. Which is allowed in Iran or Pakistan or anything like that. They say no, you keep the religion to the mosque, and when
really,
it's not time for prayer, then you're not allowed to be on the loudspeaker because you're disturbing other people and making them hate the religion for
yeah,
it, right? So it's actually not allowed, and it's actually in Islam it says when you're in other countries you have to obey the laws of those countries. Now
really.
what
Oh,
happened in the yeah it explicitly says you have to obey the law in those countries. You
well,
cannot disobey their laws.
you're,
But
you're
the
gonna love
problem,
you're gonna love the panel show tomorrow then, because I've got this clip of all these leaders of Islam in America saying how their ultimate ambition is to take over the Constitution and make all Americans Muslims.
they've been saying that since I was a kid, right? So we used to go to mosque and they used to say that's how they're gonna conquer West, but they're gonna go over there and they're gonna spread it, right? Because the day of judgment will come when the whole world has become Muslim. But
Mm,
the thing is that we are in the West are not strong enough to respect our own values, to respect our own culture, to respect our own
yeah,
heritage, and to respect the laws. So we are bending laws over here for
yeah, yeah,
them, which they are told not to bend. So
yeah,
they are just manipulating the system. So I don't
yeah, yeah.
blame them
So
that much. I blame us. It's like
you
stop
think we're
letting them do it.
you think we're being too tolerant towards them, but
Obviously,
a minute ago you were very much in favor of free speech and not deplatforming people. You wanted to
they don't
have
think.
what everybody should have their say.
Yeah,
So
everyone should have their say, but it should not become a law.
how do we square this circle then? How do we
Well, the thing
tolerate?
is, like,
And,
you know, you're allowed to say whatever you want to say as long as it is legal by the law of that land, right?
I s-
So you cannot go ahead and say, oh yeah, I have freedom of expression so I can kill you, right? Well, that's not really going to work like that. Like free speech has that sort of limitations. But if
mm,
you're saying like oh, I want Muslims not to say anything because I don't like what they're saying, that's
yeah,
wrong. That's why I said like
yeah,
I don't blame them for manipulating the system, because
yeah,
they have that right. They can speak about it. They can say no, we want the call of prayer to go out, we will go
yeah,
in the councils, we will vote for it and stuff like that. It
yeah,
is our rules. Like, okay, what are you doing? Are you taking care of immigration? Are you not getting too many people in your country from different cultures all of a
yeah.
sudden, which will change your own culture? Do you not think
Right.
that's going to have consequences?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
not a
indeed.
racist idea. That's a logical idea. How would
Yeah.
you think anyone would feel like, let's say we say okay, 100,000 people are going to Lagos, right?
Mm,
And 100,000 white British people are gonna move over there. Do you not think they're gonna change that African city? They're not.
mm,
They're gonna. Would you not think that the people of that country would have a problem with that?
yeah,
They say
yeah,
no, you're changing our culture. So,
yeah,
but these things like oh, we bring oh, if you talk about those things, you're racist, you're Islamophobic, this and that.
yeah.
Those are
Well,
the
of
problems
course.
we are facing. I don't blame the people who are coming or going or whatever, or who are saying
Mm,
that they want this for Islam or not. They are
mm,
manipulating the system. You have to
yeah.
be strong enough to.
And of course, 200 or 300 years ago, we were guilty of just that. We had an empire. We went around. We asserted our rules on them, our traditions, our customs.
Yeah,
We had
yeah.
tea time, stuff like that. Changed their
We still
culture.
have tea time
And
because of that. And
yes,
in Pakistan or India, where it's the best thing. Some things were good, so you also have to admit.
yeah.
you know,
Okay. So I want to touch on this the conundrum of trying to obey your God, yet fitting in with the constitution and the laws of the particular country you find yourself in. Because if you're in a country which accepts free speech, and you want to use that free speech to incite people to harm others, then that country has to determine where the boundary is between free speech and hate speech. And
Yeah, so
that's a bit of a grey area.
I think so. There's a definite line over here. But you have the right to free speech as long as it does not infringe the right of other to live freely or to have free speech as well, right? So
Mm,
if you say I'm going to kill you because you're different than me, or I should be allowed to kill you because you left my religion, then you're
mm,
infringing the free right of the other person. then
mm,
then the thing that you're saying is not belonging to you anymore. It
mm,
involves the other person and then their right. So that's where it stops. But if that's where the speech stops, because it's not you, it's not the consequences is going to be on another citizen now, right?
yeah.
And the state has a right, has a duty to protect the safety of the other person as well.
Mm.
So like,
There you go, though. The problem there is we need some authority. It's going to be lawyers, isn't it? And lawmakers, legislators, who have got to decide which words you're allowed to use and which words you're not allowed to
so,
use.
I don't like that. I don't like the hate speech sort of a thing.
Mm.
I don't like the idea of hate speech, because any speech can be hate. It's so subjective.
Yes,
And I
yes,
don't care what once someone says is hurtful to me or not. That doesn't matter. Even if someone is saying to me that, because you're an ex-Muslim, I should kill you, even to that point, I don't have a problem. What I have
right.
a problem is that person's ability to act on what they're saying,
Yes, yes, yes. So
right?
free speech, but not free action.
Yes.
Granted. Yes,
Yeah.
indeed. So
So
I want to show this clip, this text here, because our viewer Rainbow has put this up. Those who hurt Allah and His Messenger, Allah curses them in this life and the hereafter, and prepares for them a humiliating punishment. That's a surah, and he wants your opinion on that verse.
that's fine. So look, Allah is not saying that you should do it. Allah is saying that He would do it, right? So if you hurt Allah and you hurt His Messenger, He will deal with you and He will prepare for you a punishment afterwards. And He will do it. Even now, either He does it in your life or He does it afterwards, but He's the judge of it, and He's the one taking actions towards it. Now, if
Oh,
someone says, because Allah has said it, and that's why I must hurt you, then you are saying your Allah, your God, is not
yes,
capable enough to act on
gotcha.
His own words. You
Yes.
are not saying that your God is not omnipotent, then He can't do everything then. So if you believe in Allah, then you have to say, okay, the judgment is upon Him and He
Right.
must do it.
Yes. So, what is your view of the hereafter, the afterlife?
I don't have a view. I would like to think that there is something afterwards, but something different, so I can experience something different. But and logically, if you think about it, there's probably nothing. It's a soothing idea to
Yeah.
think that there is something.
Hmm.
It's not bad to think, because the thing is, you're not losing anything, right? So if you believe that there's an hereafter,
Mm.
it gives you comfort in this life. That's fine. Like people say, well, why you need white lies and stuff? Well, sometimes you do. Sometimes
Yes.
you need these lies, like, oh, there is a
Yes.
Father Christmas and stuff like that.
Yes.
That's fine, because if when I die, then it doesn't matter to you what I believed or not. I'm gone. So
Yes.
what's your
Yes.
problem, right? So
It only matters to people who are still surviving. Yes.
exactly,
Yes.
so
So there you've touched on the comfort aspect of
hmm,
ideas like the afterlife, and earlier you also mentioned that having a God done it explanation might give you comfort because you'd be able to sleep at night for not
yeah,
worrying about, because you now knew the answer to that
yeah,
mystery, allegedly,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So what do you think about the concept that God is actually a sort of grown-up teddy bear?
No, my personal view of God is that, like, he may or may not exist, he or she, whatever, may or may not exist, but I'm pretty sure that he doesn't believe in the religions himself. Religions do not come out of him. Religion is
Mhm,
an exercise to understand him, right?
mhm, mhm,
And if we are saying God is something above us, then we cannot understand him. That means no religion is true, because you don't understand him, basically, and off, right?
mhm,
So
mhm,
I don't know if he cannot be a manifestation of me. You
mhm,
know, if he is me, if he's my manifestation, then I am God and
mhm.
you are
Correct,
God. Then we are our
correct.
own gods. But if
Yes,
God is something outside of us, then he has to be outside of my current imagination or my
you're
current
so
understanding.
you're so unusual because the majority of people want God to authorize them. In other words, they want a God who actually agrees with them rather than them agreeing with their God. And to that end, many of them have started their own religion because
Yeah.
all the previously existing religions don't actually fit closely enough with their wishes.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, God, there could be a God who's indifferent to us, right? He created and he doesn't care. And he's
Mm,
on his way, he's creating some other universe. Or there
mm,
could be no God, or there could be many other gods, and they all have their own universes and they play around with it. It
yes.
could be anything, but it's arrogant of people to think that God would be similar to themselves.
Mm,
That's the ego playing. It's like, why? And if you believe that there is life outside, then why is God not in their image?
yes.
Because you know they might think as well. They might be.
Oh, you've muted yourself accidentally.
Oh, is
I can hear you now. Oh no, you've gone mute again. Right. Okay. Got you now, I think. Speak. No, it's gone off again. Well, while Momus is trying to get his microphone working again, I'm going to say that I've thoroughly enjoyed this chat, and I wanted to ask Momus why he's so interested in our little production team. Oh, he's back. Good.
I to
So
come
I
back
can
home? Yeah.
I can ask
I hit the USB on my on my foot.
that that explains it. Yeah,
Yeah.
technology. Yeah. So what I wanted to lighten the mood a bit because we're
Hmm.
almost near the end of the program here, and I wanted to ask you why are you? I mean, I'm honoured that you think that we are worth joining, but what is there about the Free Thought channel, the Free Thought Productions that you like and wish to be part of?
Well, see, the thing is, I like thinking when I'm talking. So I like conversing in that way. So it gives me time to think. And I like to talk with people that I might not completely agree with, because in
Mhm.
discussing with them, I might find something, you know, that I didn't used to agree with myself, or like, I can have contradictions within my
Yeah.
own head. But the main thing as well is I want to be able to be involved in a conversation when I can change the mind of some of the atheists to stop going towards a dogmatic move that I see in some of them, right?
Mhm.
That I see some of them adopting this coercive ideology, this coercive woke ideology that is on the left as well,
Yeah.
which is
Mm,
inflicting them, which is moving them away, which is making them
mm.
question the merit of someone like Richard Dawkins. And you have to say, like, oh, come on now, right? So you're leaving sense, you're believing in the woo woo that you
Mm,
say that is the woo woo, like, right? So you are believing in something that is not real, that has not been proven yet. And
mm,
that is something that I saw in 2010 when I came over here. I knew that this was going to pave a way to something like that, right? Because
yeah,
people didn't know why they didn't believe, right? So they
yeah,
will create this into a religion as well. So
I see.
this is my main motive, to be involved in a sort of like a platform where we
Yes.
can tell people, like, it's okay to not let go of all the knowledge of our ancestors, which is
Yep.
within these religions. There are metaphorical truths in there which are
Mhm.
very important for us to understand, because they are fundamental to human behavior. And
Mhm.
then
Yeah.
there's edicts that we can ignore.
Yes, that's right. So there's what you're against really is being dogmatic, isn't it? And
Yes.
there's no reason to say, oh, we mustn't have Red Riding Hood and the Big Bad Wolf anymore,
Yeah.
because it's a fun story.
Yeah.
Anyway, Momus, this has been fantastic. I just want to say that next week we've got a similar conversation with Sean Gilmore. And I can't tell you much about him at the moment, but there will be a poster produced during the week. He's already sent me his picture and a
Oh,
couple of sentences about him. So watch us again next week. And thank you very much for watching this edition too. Momus, I'm going to play us out.
all right.
Okay?
Thank you,
Say
everyone.
bye.
Bye now.